Hello everyone, and welcome to Dead Time Stories. Tonight, the storm outside isn't the only thing brewing. True tales so chilling they'll make your skin crawl, yet so mesmerizing you won't be able to turn away. But here's the twist. That distant thunder isn't just atmosphere. It's the key to unlocking your deepest sleep. So before you drift off, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's get comfortable, relax, and dive into tonight's story. Daniel had always known the house. Everyone in town did. The two massive oaks stood like guards at its edge, their branches bowing into each other so thickly that even in daylight the house looked dim, as though the sun itself was unwilling to touch it. As a boy, he had pedaled past with his friends, daring each other to get close. They never did. Some swore they saw a curtain twitch upstairs, though the house had been empty for decades. Others whispered that a woman's scream could sometimes be heard on foggy nights. The stories were endless, though never proven. Now, years later, Daniel found himself standing before the iron gate again. College break had drawn him back home, restless and sleepless, wandering streets he hadn't seen in years. But his feet stopped at Briar Lane. He stared through the bars, trying to tell himself he wasn't thinking of the stories, but he was. The gate should have resisted. It looked brittle, ready to crumble at a push. But when his hand pressed against the cool iron, it gave, swinging open with a long metallic groan that echoed down the street like a warning. Daniel froze. The sound seemed too loud, too deliberate, as though the house itself had opened its eyes. "Just wood and metal," he whispered to himself, his breath fogging the air. Nothing more. The path was cracked, stones jutting out where weeds had grown tall and stubborn. His shoes crunched through the grass as he walked forward, feeling each step carry him deeper into the hush that hung around the house. The porch waited ahead. Its boards sagged, groaning as the night breeze stirred them. The swing shifted, creaking softly. When he climbed the steps, every board beneath him gave a low whine, like old bones complaining. His hand brushed the porch railing. It was slick with damp, but not cold. Instead, it felt faintly warm, as though another hand had trailed there not long before. The door stood in front of him, its surface scarred with age but intact, the dull brass knob tarnished and unpolished. Daniel hesitated, listening. No cars. No wind. No dogs barking down the block. Only silence. He set his hand on the knob. It was warm. Warmer than it should have been. For a moment he thought of turning back, but the stillness behind him felt heavier than what waited inside. He twisted the knob. The door clicked. Opened. The air that poured out was not stale. It smelled faintly of wood smoke, faintly of apples just on the edge of rot. Beneath that was something harder to name, a smell like stone left too long underground. He stepped over the threshold. Behind him, the door shut on its own. And from somewhere above, muffled but certain, came the sound of a single footstep. The sound froze him. It hadn't been the pop of wood settling or the whisper of the wind. It was too measured, too deliberate. One heavy thump from upstairs, as if someone had shifted their weight and stood still. Daniel's pulse quickened. His throat tightened, and for a moment he wanted to laugh at himself. It was an old house, abandoned. Empty. Probably birds, or maybe a raccoon that had slipped in through a broken window. That's all. Still, his voice broke the silence just to remind himself it could. "Hello?" His word was swallowed almost instantly, absorbed into the walls. No echo, no answering sound. He took another step inside. The floor beneath his sneakers moaned, the sound rolling away through the hall as though announcing him to the house. His eyes adjusted to the dimness, tracing the shapes of a long, narrow entryway. Wallpaper peeled in strips, pale yellow faded almost to white. A chandelier hung above, its crystal strands coated in dust, yet faintly glimmering in the low light seeping through the door's stained glass window. On his right stretched a parlor. Faint moonlight spilled through tall windows, pooling across a set of covered furniture. Dust sheets cloaked the shapes of chairs and a sofa, their outlines hunched like figures waiting. To his left was a dining room. A long oak table sat under a heavy layer of dust, though in the center, oddly untouched, was a porcelain bowl. Inside, something small and dark lay crumbled. Apples, maybe? Or what had once been apples? Daniel's breath itched. The stories said the house had been abandoned since the late 70s. 40 years. Nothing fresh should have lasted this long. He whispered again, softer this time. Is anyone here? The tick-tick-tick came then, faint but steady, like the gears of a clock. It pulsed from somewhere deeper in the house. He followed the sound, his shoes brushing over warped boards, until he reached the bottom of the staircase. The railing rose high and curled in a graceful sweep toward the landing above. The steps stretched upward into gloom, the faintest suggestion of shapes beyond, doors, a hallway, shadows waiting. Daniel swallowed hard. His hand gripped the railing. The wood was smooth, polished, warm. Too warm. Then, from above, a second footstep. Softer, nearer. And this time, Daniel swore, absolutely swore, he heard breathing. Daniel froze at the base of the stairs. His grip on the railing tightened until his knuckles ached. Upstairs, the air seemed thicker, heavier, as if the silence itself had weight. His mind tried to reason with him. It's an animal. A stray. Maybe a vagrant sleeping upstairs. But his chest knew better. His body knew better. The sound hadn't been random, it had been deliberate. He leaned back, just slightly, as if his body was urging him to retreat. But his feet betrayed him. One step. Then another. Each stair groaned beneath his weight, the sound so loud in the hush it made him wince. Halfway up, the tick of the unseen clock grew clearer. It was rhythmic, steady, like the heartbeat of the house itself. He paused, straining his ears. Alongside it came another sound, faint, like fabric brushing wood, as though something upstairs had shifted just out of sight. At the top, the hallway stretched wide. Wallpaper peeled in long curls, exposing wooden slats beneath. A rug, threadbare and moth-eaten, ran the length of the corridor. There were 5 doors, 3 on the left, 2 on the right, each closed, each waiting. The first door on the left hung slightly ajar. A thread of warm amber light spilled from the crack, thin and trembling, as though from a candle. Daniel's throat went dry. "Hello?" he whispered again, his voice rasping. For a moment, just a breath, he thought he heard someone whisper back. Too soft to catch the words. Too soft to be sure. He stepped closer, his shoes muffled by the worn rug. The door creaked when he pushed, the sound splitting the silence like a groan of protest. The room inside was a bedroom, small but neatly arranged. A bed sat beneath the window, its quilt still folded, its pillow plumped. A wooden rocking chair faced the door, and on it sat a doll. Porcelain. Its cracked face reflected the amber glow of a candle burning on the dresser. Daniel's heart stuttered. The flame flickered, though there was no breeze. He took a step into the room. The floor shuddered beneath his weight. The rocking chair moved, just slightly, just once, creaking back an inch. And the doll's head, fractured porcelain and glassy eyes, tilted to face him. Daniel stumbled back, his shoulder striking the doorframe. The sound of the rocking chair's faint creak lingered in the air, as though the house wanted him to notice every second of it. The doll sat there, head angled toward him, its glass eyes gleaming in the trembling candlelight. A crack split its cheek, jagged like a scar. For a long moment, Daniel couldn't move, couldn't even breathe. His voice cracked as he forced out words. "Someone here? Is this some kind of joke?" Only the tick-tick-tick of the hidden clock answered. Summoning his nerve, he edged into the room. The air here was warmer, almost close, and smelled faintly of smoke and something sweet. Apples again, stronger now. He reached for the candle. The flame bent toward him, as though reaching back, before guttering low. His hand hovered above it, trembling. Behind him, the chair creaked again. He spun, heart hammering. The doll was still. Perfectly still. Its tilted head, however, seemed to lean farther now, the angle sharper, unnatural. Daniel exhaled slowly, whispering to himself. "It's in my head. Just my head." He forced his eyes away and scanned the dresser. Dust coated it thickly except for a small rectangle, an empty space where something had once rested. A frame, perhaps. Or a book. Something recently moved. He opened the drawer. Inside lay a single item, a pocket watch. Silver, its chain coiled like a snake, its face ticking faintly. The sound matched the rhythm he'd heard downstairs. Tick, tick, tick. The moment his fingers brushed it, the candle flared. Shadows leapt across the walls, stretching long, bending unnaturally. The doll's face glowed in the light, its painted lips twisting almost into a smile. A whisper brushed Daniel's ear. Close. Too close. A woman's voice, breathless and low. Don't wind it. He dropped the watch back into the drawer with a clatter and stumbled toward the hallway. The door slammed shut behind him with such force the walls shuddered. Daniel staggered into the corridor, gasping. And then silence. No ticking. No whispers. Only the sound of footsteps retreating down the hall. Slow. Heavy. One after another. Not his. Something else's. Daniel's chest heaved as he pressed his back to the wall. The sound of footsteps moved away from him, slow but deliberate, each one weighted like it carried more than a body. The rug beneath his shoes seemed to hum with each thud, as though the house itself carried the vibration. He swallowed, forcing his voice out in a hoarse whisper. Who's there? The steps did not falter. They reached the end of the hallway and stopped. Silence, thick and waiting. Daniel edged forward, his sneakers sinking into the old rug. He passed the closed doors, each one seeming to lean toward him as he passed, as though pressing in to listen. His eyes darted to the edges, peeling wallpaper, a cracked picture frame hanging crooked, a family portrait inside. He froze. The photograph showed 4 figures, a man, a woman, a little boy, and a girl clutching a doll, the same doll from the room behind him. The glass over the photo had splintered, a jagged crack running directly through the woman's face. Daniel's breath shivered in his throat. He reached out, fingertips brushing the frame. The portrait shifted. Just slightly. The boy's eyes were no longer on the camera. They were staring directly at him. Daniel staggered back. No, 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 no! The whisper came again, curling through the hallway like smoke. You shouldn't be here. The voice was close, closer than before. It didn't come from one place but from the walls themselves, the floor beneath him, the ceiling above. The second door on the right groaned. Its handle twisted, slow, deliberate. Daniel's heart pounded in his ears. He should run, bolt down the stairs, tear through the gate, and never look back. But his legs wouldn't listen. They carried him toward the door as it cracked open, revealing nothing but darkness within. The air pouring out was colder than the rest of the house. His breath fogged as he leaned closer. A child's laugh echoed inside. High-pitched. Short. Not joyful, mocking. The door swung wide. And in the blackness beyond, something moved. A shape low to the ground, crawling fast. Straight toward him. Daniel stumbled back as the thing skittered from the darkness. He caught only glimpses at first. The scrape of limbs against the floor, the shine of pale skin in the half-light, the way it moved too quickly, too fluidly, like water spilling over stone. He grabbed the railing of the hallway, heart slamming against his ribs. Stay back! He shouted, though his voice cracked, thin against the sound of the thing's approach. The shape slowed just at the threshold of the door. The candlelight from the bedroom stretched faintly into the corridor, enough to reveal a child. Or something that looked like one. It crouched on the floor, thin arms bent at sharp angles, its head cocked too far to the side, almost upside down. Its hair hung in clumps, greasy and long, and its eyes were wide, black, gleaming like wet glass. The laugh came again, but the lips never moved. The sound poured from the walls, bouncing around the hallway until it felt as though the entire house was laughing with it. Daniel's stomach turned. His legs wanted to run, but his feet were heavy, rooted. The child thing whispered, voice stretched thin, as though pulled through a broken speaker. Play with us. It crawled forward, one hand slapping the rug, then the other, its knees bending backward as though the joints didn't belong. The closer it came, the colder the air grew, until Daniel's breath came in clouds. "No," he whispered, his voice nearly gone. "No, no, no!" Behind him, one of the other doors banged open. Then another. Hinges shrieked, wood cracked, until the entire hallway was alive with doors slamming and flinging wide, as though the house was waking from sleep. From each dark room, shapes stirred. Too many shapes. Too many small hands, small faces, pale eyes gleaming in the dark. Children. Crawling out. Daniel turned and bolted down the hallway. His shoes slipped against the rug, his shoulder hit the wall, but he kept running. The laughter followed him, spilling from every doorway, every crack in the wall, until the house itself seemed to be screaming. He hit the top of the stairs and nearly fell as his foot caught the lip of the first step. He grabbed the railing, steadied himself, and looked back. They were following. All of them. Crawling low, spilling out of rooms, hands slapping against the floor, eyes black and bottomless. And at the end of the hall, standing perfectly still among them, was the woman from the portrait. Her head bent forward, hair veiling her face. She raised one pale hand, and every crawling child froze. The children froze mid-crawl, bodies twisted at wrong angles, fingers still pressing into the floorboards as if caught in the middle of motion. The hallway fell into a suffocating silence. Daniel clutched the banister, heart hammering against his ribs, his throat too tight to swallow. His eyes fixed on the woman. She stood tall, her thin frame draped in a dark dress that hung to her ankles. The fabric was old-fashioned, the kind Daniel had only ever seen in old photographs, its lace collar yellowed with age. Her long hair tumbled forward, hiding her face, strands stringy as though damp. Her arm remained raised, hand pale, fingers slightly curled like claws. The children, if they were children, remained still at her command, their heads turning slowly in unison toward him. Dozens of wide, black eyes pinned him in place. Daniel's voice cracked. "WH, what do you want from me?" The woman's head twitched, tilting a fraction too far to the side, unnatural in its angle. The hair swayed, and for a moment Daniel thought he glimpsed something beneath it, skin too white, lips too dark. The house groaned around them, as though it too listened. Finally, her voice came. Soft at first, rasping as though drawn up from the depths of the walls. "You came through the gate." Daniel's stomach dropped. Her hand lowered. Instantly, the crawling children sank back, pressing themselves flat against the floor. Their bodies melted into the rug, into the cracks of the wood, vanishing as though the house had swallowed them whole. One blink, and the hallway was empty but for him and her. She stepped forward, her bare feet silent against the boards. With every step she took, the air grew colder, the faint smell of rot and smoke tightening around him. Daniel gripped the banister so hard the wood creaked under his palm. "Stay back," he warned, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. She paused, lifted her head slowly, the curtain of hair shifting, and then he saw her face. Her eyes were gone. Empty sockets stared at him, rimmed with bruised flesh. Her lips were torn, cracked as though she had chewed them to pieces. And yet, somehow, her expression was gentle, almost kind. Her ruined mouth moved. "Do not let it wind again." Daniel blinked, confused, until he remembered. The watch. The drawer. The steady tick. The pocket watch that had been keeping time all along. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the house shuddered. A deep, resonant boom rattled through the walls, and the faint ticking returned, louder now, urgent, echoing from every room. The woman's head snapped toward the sound, and she screamed. The sound tore through the hallway, not human, not natural. It wasn't just loud, it was inside him. Daniel clapped his hands over his ears, but the scream vibrated through his bones, rattling his teeth, pulsing in his skull. His vision blurred as though the house itself shivered with the noise. The candlelight from the bedroom guttered and blew out, plunging the upstairs into near darkness. Only the thin glow of the moon slipped through the window at the end of the hall, silver and cold. The woman staggered, her hands clawing at her face. Her empty sockets wept black tears that dripped down her cheeks and spattered the floor. She screamed again, longer, louder, until Daniel thought his eardrums would rupture. The ticking pocket watch thundered louder, faster. Tick 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 tick, racing as though the house itself had a heartbeat spiraling out of control. Daniel bolted. His body finally listened to what his mind had begged for since the first step. He ran for the stairs, his sneakers slipping on the rug, his hands sliding down the railing. The shadows on the walls lunged beside him, racing with him, as though trying to overtake him. He hit the stairs too hard, nearly pitching forward head first. He gripped the rail, stumbling down the steps as the scream chased him. Behind him, he heard movement. Heavy. Not crawling this time. Running. The children. He dared a glance over his shoulder. Dozens of them poured from the rooms, their pale arms pumping, their mouths stretched wide in silent shrieks. Their bare feet slammed against the floorboards, faster, faster, as if the scream drove them on. Daniel missed a step, crashed against the wall, pain shooting through his shoulder. He shoved himself forward, down, down, until his foot finally hit the first floor. The entryway yawned ahead. Moonlight spilled through the stained glass of the front door. Safety. Escape. But when he reached it, the knob wouldn't turn. His sweaty palms slipped over the brass, twisting, yanking, slamming his shoulder into the door. It didn't move. The scream grew louder. The children were on the stairs now, spilling over each other in their rush, their black eyes fixed on him. "Come on!" Daniel shouted at the door, slamming his fists against it. "Open! Open!" And then, silence. The scream cut off. The ticking stopped. Every sound died. Daniel froze, chest heaving. Slowly, he turned. The children stood frozen on the stairs, their mouths still open but no sound escaping. Their heads turned in unison, not toward him, but toward the parlor to his right. From the shadows of that room, something else stirred. Something bigger. Something that scraped against the ceiling as it rose. The parlor doorway gaped like a wound in the wall, shadows yawning wider as something inside shifted. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to run, but the children on the stairs still blocked the path behind him. They didn't move, didn't blink, just stared toward that room as though waiting. A long, scraping noise split the silence. Wood against plaster. Something inside the parlor dragged itself upright, joints popping like tree branches snapping in the cold. Daniel whispered to himself, barely audible. Don't look in there." But his body betrayed him. Step by step, he edged toward the parlor, unable to resist. His sneakers crunched faintly on the warped boards. His breath fogged, white in the air. Moonlight spilled across the floor just far enough to reveal the edge of the room. The sheeted furniture loomed like pale shapes at a funeral. The heavy drape covering the windows shifted, though the night outside was still. And then a voice crawled out of the dark. Deep. Low. Each word dragging against the air like rusted chains. "You wound it." Daniel froze. His skin prickled, hair standing on end. "No," he whispered. I didn't touch it." The laugh that followed made his chest clench. It was not the laughter of children. It was older, wetter, like the gurgle of something rising through water. The furniture shifted. Slowly, one of the covered chairs slid across the floor, scraping an arc toward him. Another toppled backward, the dust sheet flying off to reveal what blackened with rot. Daniel stepped back into the hallway, his shoulders striking the wall. The children didn't move, but he felt their black eyes following him now, pulling his gaze back to the parlor. Something inside moved closer to the doorframe. Taller than the room itself, its bulk scraped the ceiling, bending, folding itself to fit. A smell poured out, damp earth, rot, and something faintly metallic, like old blood. Daniel's hand pressed flat to the door behind him. His heart hammered so loud he thought it would draw the thing straight to him. From the shadows, a hand appeared. Too long, too thin, fingers bending wrong. It gripped the frame, nails scraping grooves into the wood as it pulled itself forward. A face followed. No, not a face, but a mask of shadow stretched across bone. Hollow sockets, a jaw unhinged too far, teeth like shards of glass glinting in the moonlight. It leaned low, close enough for Daniel to feel the cold air spilling from its mouth. And in a voice that shook the walls, it whispered, "Time is mine!" Daniel's knees nearly buckled under him as the thing's words sank into the air. "Time is mine!" The walls trembled, plaster cracking, wallpaper curling tighter against the boards. The chandelier above the entryway rattled, crystal fragments clinking like teeth chattering in the cold. Daniel pressed himself harder against the front door, fingers scrambling uselessly over the knob. He whispered to himself through clenched teeth, a mantra to keep his legs steady. "Not real! Not real! Not real!" The shadow thing unfolded further into the hall. Its limbs bent backward, like an insect trying to mimic human movement. The floorboards groaned under its weight, though its body looked almost skeletal, a skin of shadow stretched too thin. Its jaw hung open, twitching, strings of black saliva dripping and hissing as they struck the wood. From the stairs, the children began to move again. Slowly this time. They rose together, standing unnaturally straight, their pale heads tilting in unison toward Daniel. Not a sound escaped them now, no laughter, no footsteps. But their eyes reflected the faint moonlight, black glass catching silver. Daniel's voice cracked. "What do you want from me?" The woman's voice, the one from upstairs, echoed faintly, though she wasn't there now. Her whisper slid along the hallway, soft but insistent. "Do not let it wind again." Daniel's mind raced. The pocket watch. It had stopped when he dropped it. But now, his ears caught it again. A faint click. Then another. Tick, tick, tick. The shadow thing's head twitched toward the sound, its empty sockets widening as though sniffing it out. It dragged its body closer, scraping nails through the wallpaper, tearing long grooves into the wall as it advanced. Daniel shook his head. "No. I didn't touch it. I didn't wind it." His voice rose, panicked. "It's not me!" The entity froze. Its jaw snapped shut with a sound like splintering bone. Then, very slowly, it leaned closer until Daniel felt its breath on his cheek, cold, rancid, filling his lungs like smoke. The words that spilled out made his blood run colder than the October night. "You opened the house." The chandelier crashed to the floor, exploding in shards at Daniel's feet. The children screamed together in one shrill, unending wail. And the thing lunged. The shadow thing lunged with such speed that the air seemed to shatter. Daniel dove sideways, his shoulder slamming into the parlor wall just as the entity's hand struck where he'd been standing. Nails tore straight through the wood, leaving 5 gaping trenches. Splinters showered across the floor. Daniel scrambled to his feet and ran. His sneakers slipped on the broken chandelier glass, slicing his palm as he caught himself. But adrenaline carried him forward. He sprinted past the parlor door, down the corridor toward the dining room. Behind him, the entity followed. Its limbs didn't pound against the floor like his. They scraped, dragging in jerks and spasms. Yet somehow it was fast, too fast. Its hiss filled the hall, a constant, sucking sound like air being ripped from the house itself. The children screamed again. This time, they moved too, rushing down the stairs in a swarm. Their bare feet slapped in rhythm, small hands reaching, their eyes black pits that glowed faintly in the dark. Daniel barreled into the dining room. The long oak table loomed, dust thick on its surface, the porcelain bowl of shriveled apples still in the center. His foot caught the edge of the rug, nearly sending him sprawling, but he yanked himself forward and bolted to the far door. It wouldn't budge. The handle rattled, wood groaning, but it was locked tight. "No!" His voice cracked into a scream. He slammed his shoulder into it once, twice, pain exploding through his arm. The door didn't move. The air behind him shifted. Cold. Heavy. The shadow thing was in the room now. Daniel spun. The children crowded into the doorway, their bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, blocking escape. Their faces were blank but for those eyes, glassy and endless. And behind them, Looming in the hall, the entity bent its too long body to fit through the frame, jaw unhinging wide enough to split its face. The ticking of the pocket watch filled the air again, louder now, pounding in Daniel's skull like a war drum. Tick, tick, tick. Faster, louder. The woman's voice whispered through the room, desperate this time. Do not let it wind again. Daniel's eyes darted to the sideboard. A drawer. He yanked it open, empty except for a flash of silver. The watch. It sat coiled in its chain, its hands trembling as they jerked forward with each tick. The entity froze, its head snapping toward the drawer. The children did too, their heads swiveling in perfect unison, their mouths stretching open soundlessly. Daniel grabbed the watch. The metal burned his skin, but he held on tight, lifting it toward the entity as if it were a weapon. Stay back! He shouted, though his voice broke in terror. The watch ticked harder. The hands twitched violently. And then, click! The minute hand wound forward on its own. The entity smiled. The silver case trembled in Daniel's hand, the chain rattling like a snake. The tick-tick-tick had become frantic now, a blur of sound so loud it drowned out his own heartbeat. The hands spun forward in short, violent jerks. Click, 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 winding themselves though he hadn't touched the dial. No, stop, I didn't! His voice cracked, desperate, but the watch ignored him. The entity stretched taller, scraping its shoulders against the dining room ceiling. Its mouth split wider, and through that broken maw came a sound halfway between laughter and choking. The children at the doorway swayed as one, their heads bobbing in rhythm with the ticking. The woman's voice returned, softer now, a whisper hidden under the noise. Daniel barely caught it. Break it! His gaze snapped to the pocket watch. Break it? Could he? His fingers curled tighter around the burning silver, the heat biting deep into his palm. The watch shuddered, then snapped open. Its glass face gleamed in the moonlight filtering through the curtains, showing not a reflection of Daniel's face, but of the dining room itself. In the tiny reflection, he saw the table, the bowl of apples, the entity looming behind him. And then the reflection changed. The table was empty. The windows were bricked over. The walls blackened and charred. And in the reflection, he wasn't standing there at all. Someone else was. A man in old clothes, face gaunt, eyes hollow. The man mouthed words Daniel couldn't hear, then pressed his hands against the inside of the glass as though begging to be let out. The watch clicked again. Louder. Faster. The children shrieked, high-pitched and piercing, clutching their heads. The entity bellowed, a sound like 1,000 doors slamming at once, and lurched forward. Its long hand shot toward Daniel. Daniel screamed and swung the watch. The chain whipped, striking the creature's arm. The thing recoiled, hissing, its shadow skin smoking where the silver touched. It hurts you, Daniel gasped. Doesn't it? The whisper pressed in again, urgent now, the woman's voice trembling. Break it or be kept. The entity screeched and lunged. Daniel raised the watch high and hurled it down onto the oak table. The glass face shattered. A sound like 1,000 clocks breaking at once exploded through the house. The chandelier shards rattled. The wallpaper peeled in waves. Every window in the dining room cracked, spiderwebbing white. The children collapsed where they stood, bodies melting into smoke, eyes vanishing in the air. The entity reeled back, its form unraveling, shadow peeling off bone. Its scream filled every corner of the house, shaking dust from the rafters. Daniel staggered, staring at the shattered watch face. For a moment, just a moment, he thought he saw the man inside, smiling. Then he was gone, and silence fell. The house was still. Dust swirled in the faint shafts of moonlight cutting through the cracked windows, floating like ash. Daniel stood trembling, chest heaving, his hand bleeding where the watch's broken glass had cut deep. The dining room reeked of smoke and rot, but the air no longer pulsed with that dreadful ticking. The entity was gone. The children were gone. Daniel staggered back until his shoulders struck the wall. He slid down it, his body shuddering with the release of everything he'd been holding in. A laugh broke from his throat, sharp, nervous, not quite sane. Over, he whispered, almost convincing himself. It's over. The house didn't answer. Minutes passed. The only sound was the wind clawing faintly at the edges of the house, a branch tapping the roof. Slowly, Daniel pushed himself up, wiping sweat and dust from his face. His palm burned where the watch had cut him, but he ignored it. He stepped into the hallway again. The front door loomed ahead, silent, waiting. His heart leapt. Maybe now it would open. Maybe destroying the watch had broken whatever bound the place. He grabbed the knob. Cold. But it turned under his hand. Daniel exhaled, relief flooding him. He pulled. And the door opened into blackness. Not night. Not the street. Not the faint glow of lamplight beyond the gate. Just void. A curtain of endless dark, thick and suffocating, swallowing everything past the threshold. Daniel's relief curdled into terror. He staggered back, slamming the door shut. His breathing grew ragged. No, no, no. I broke it. I broke it. It's supposed to be over. From upstairs came a sound. Soft. Familiar. The creak of the rocking chair. Daniel froze. His head snapped upward. The woman's voice drifted down, calm this time, almost motherly. You freed one. But the house keeps the rest. Daniel's knees weakened. His throat went dry. What do you mean? He croaked. The rocking chair creaked again, steady, like a lullaby. And the whisper followed, darker now, curling through every wall. You cannot leave until another takes your place. The chandelier above him swayed, though no wind stirred. And from the cracks in the floorboards, faint as a breath, came the first soft tick. The tick-tick-tick seeped into Daniel's bones like a sickness, faint but insistent. He staggered back from the door, clutching his bloody hand against his shirt. His eyes darted around the entryway, searching for anything, any escape. Another takes my place? He muttered, half to himself, half to the house. His voice sounded foreign in the vast silence, thin and brittle. No, I'm not. The rocking chair groaned above, steady as a metronome. The sound was wrong, too heavy for an empty piece of furniture. With each creak came the woman's whisper, weaving through the stairwell. Someone must stay. Someone must keep the gate. Daniel's throat clenched. I don't belong here. The chandeliers swayed harder, crystals clinking like tiny bells. A draft slid through the house, but it wasn't cold. It was warm, sticky, like a fever. Daniel's skin prickled with sweat. He stumbled into the parlor, desperate to find another exit. Moonlight bled through the drapes, pale and thin. The sheeted furniture sat where it had before, but the shapes seemed wronger now, slouched, bent, too human. Think, Daniel whispered to himself, running a trembling hand through his hair. It's a story. It's just a story. Houses don't eat people. But his words fell flat. Even he didn't believe them. On the mantel above the dead fireplace sat something he hadn't noticed before. A book. Small, leather-bound, its cover cracked and flaking. It looked placed there, deliberate, like someone had left it waiting. His hands shook as he picked it up. Dust billowed from its pages when he opened it. The handwriting inside was jagged, frantic. The ink bled in places as though written with a trembling hand. He scanned the words. Cannot leave. The gate chooses another soul to tend the house, or be swallowed by it. The clock binds them all. Break it, and only one is freed. Daniel's chest tightened. His mouth went dry. Footsteps creaked upstairs. Slow. Patient. Coming closer. The rocking chair stilled. And the woman's voice whispered again, softer now, almost kind. You can go, Daniel. But you must bring someone back. His blood ran cold. No, he whispered, shaking his head. No, I can't, I won't. The house groaned, deep and angry, as though it had been denied. The tick-tick-tick quickened, echoing in the walls. Shadows lengthened across the parlor, crawling toward him like living things. The book fell from his hands, and from behind him came the sound of the front door unlatching, slowly, as though inviting him to try again. The metallic scrape of the latch echoed through the entryway. Daniel turned, his heart thundering in his chest. The front door, once locked and cold, now stood slightly ajar. A sliver of night cut through, black and beckoning. For a moment, hope surged through him. His legs moved before his mind caught up, carrying him to the door. He shoved his fingers into the gap and pulled. The hinges moaned as the door opened wide. And beyond was not Briar Lane. At first, it looked like night fog. Thick, swirling, endless. But as Daniel squinted into it, the fog shifted. Shapes moved within it. Shapes like people. Dozens. Hundreds. Their faces pale, mouths open in silent screams, bodies swaying as though trapped in unseen currents. Daniel's breath itched. No, oh God! One of the shapes drifted closer. Its face came into focus. Eyes wide, lips split from endless mouthing of words he couldn't hear. Its arms stretched toward him, fingers clawing against the barrier of the threshold. Daniel stumbled back. The door slammed shut on its own, the echo rattling through the hall like a gunshot. Behind him, the rocking chair creaked once more. The woman's voice filled the house, no longer soft, but sharp, commanding. Bring one back. Daniel spun, rage and terror boiling together. No! I'm not your damn errand boy. I don't care what this place wants. I'm not doing it! His voice cracked as it bounced back at him from the walls, small and weak compared to the house's endless hum. The chandelier above rattled. The windows shuddered in their frames. From the cracks in the walls seeped shadows, slow, patient, stretching toward him like tendrils. The book he had dropped snapped open on the floor, its pages riffling without touch. The ink on one page darkened, fresh and wet, etching itself into new words as he stared. The keeper never chooses. The house does. Daniel's skin went ice cold. He backed toward the staircase, eyes darting from the walls to the door, to the shadows that crept closer. And then footsteps. Heavy. Real. Not from the stairs. Not from the hall. From outside. Someone was walking up Briar Lane. Daniel froze, horror rooting him in place. His chest seized as the house seemed to lean toward the sound, the very walls pulsing. The latch on the door clicked again. This time, the voice came not as a whisper, but as a chorus, from the woman, from the children, from the house itself. Open it! The knock was soft at first. 3 polite taps on the door, almost absurd in their normalcy after all he had seen. Daniel's stomach dropped. His mouth went dry. He stumbled backward until his calves struck the bottom stair. Another knock followed, firmer this time. Then a voice, muffled but clear. Hello? Hello, is someone in there? It was a man. Ordinary. Curious. Just like he had been. Daniel shook his head violently. No, go back! Don't come in here! His voice broke against the wood. Please, just leave! But the latch slid on its own, metal groaning like a throat clearing. The door swung an inch wider. The night outside was visible now, moonlight spilling onto the warped floorboards. The shadows in the hall grew restless. They quivered, stretching long fingers across the walls and floor. The air grew thick and hot, the smell of rot choking. Who's in there? The man called again, closer now. A shuffle of shoes on cracked pavement. Daniel's chest heaved. He wanted to scream at him to run, but the words tangled in his throat. He turned instead toward the woman's voice, desperate. Don't make me do this! I won't let you take him! The rocking chair upstairs creaked once, slow and patient. And the chorus of voices replied, layered and inhuman, shaking the walls. The house takes. The house keeps. The door slammed wide before Daniel could move. A man in a windbreaker, maybe mid-30s, blinked in from the streetlight glow beyond. His brow furrowed as he peered into the entryway. Hey, are you all right in here? Do you need? The rest of his words dissolved into a scream. The shadows surged from the walls, wrapping around his legs and chest, yanking him forward into the house. His shoes scraped the threshold, his fingers clawed at the frame, but the void swallowed him whole. The door snapped shut. Silence. Daniel stood frozen, his breath ragged, tears stinging his eyes. The house had chosen, and he was still inside. The woman's voice drifted from upstairs again, soothing now, almost proud. The gate is fed. You may leave, for now. The latch clicked. The front door stood waiting. Daniel's shaking hand reached toward it. He paused, staring at the wood, the brass knob glinting faintly. Behind him, the house exhaled, floorboards groaning with hunger still not satisfied. He opened the door. And beyond was Briar Lane. Moonlight on cracked pavement. The oaks swaying. The ordinary night. The air outside was cold. Real. For the first time in hours, maybe days, Daniel believed he might escape. He stepped through the gate. And the house watched him go. The front door shut gently behind Daniel. The latch clicked, the iron gate rattled once, and the street outside fell still again. Inside, the house exhaled. A long, low groan ran through the beams and floorboards, as though it had fed and was settling back into sleep. The shadows slid back into the cracks of the walls, curling like smoke returning to a fire. But the man who had been dragged across the threshold did not vanish. Not yet. He lay crumpled on the entryway floor, chest heaving, eyes wide with shock. His voice trembled as he whispered into the silence. What was that? Where am I? The house did not answer with words. It answered with sound. Creak. The rocking chair above stirred, swaying steadily as if rocked by invisible hands. The man's head jerked upward. Hello? His voice cracked. Is someone here? Creak. He stumbled to his feet, shoes squeaking on the warped floor. Listen, I didn't mean to come in. I was just walking by. I'll leave, I swear I'll. The door behind him rattled, but when he grabbed the knob, it wouldn't turn. His palms slipped over it, panic building. He yanked, slammed his shoulder, cursed under his breath. Nothing. His chest heaved. He turned back toward the staircase. That was when he saw the children. They lined the upper landing, shoulder to shoulder, silent as dolls. Dozens of them. Black eyes gleaming, small hands gripping the banister. Their heads tilted slightly, all at the same angle, as though one thought ran through them together. The man stumbled back. No, what the hell is this? One child stepped forward. A girl in a nightdress, clutching a porcelain doll with a cracked face. Her lips didn't move, but a voice filled the air. You stay now. The man's knees buckled. No! Please, I have a family. The woman's whisper swept down the stairs, cutting him off. So did we. The chandelier above rattled. Shadows spilled across the walls. The children began to descend, slow and steady, their bare feet tapping softly against the steps. The man pressed himself against the locked door, tears streaming down his face. Please don't. The rocking chair creaked again, and the house welcomed its new keeper. The children's footsteps echoed, soft and rhythmic, as they descended the stairs. The man pressed harder against the front door, palms flat against the wood, as if he could will it to open. His breath came in panicked sobs. Stay away, he shouted. Don't come near me. But the children didn't falter. They reached the bottom step, lining the entryway in a perfect semicircle around him. Their glassy black eyes reflected his trembling face. None of their mouths moved, but he heard them, felt them, inside his skull. You stay. You keep. His chest tightened, air catching in his lungs. I don't even know what that means. I didn't ask for this. The girl with the doll stepped forward. Her cracked porcelain companion tilted its head, glass eyes gleaming. The girl's whisper rode the air, soft but absolute. You are chosen. The man's legs gave way. He slid down the door, his back pressed hard to the wood, his knees bent before him. His eyes darted to the side, searching desperately for another way out. That was when he noticed the pocket watch. It sat on the floor near the base of the stairs, its glass shattered, its hands twitching violently. A faint light pulsed from its broken face, dim but steady, like a dying heartbeat. The man crawled toward it, hands shaking. If I fix it, will you let me go? His voice broke, pleading. Please, I'll do anything. The children didn't answer. They only watched. The man picked up the watch. The metal seared his skin, but he held tight. The faint tick stuttered in his ears, uneven, struggling to keep time. Work, damn you, he whispered, fumbling with the cracked dial. His fingers twisted, blood from his burned palms smearing the silver. The gears inside ground against one another, protesting. Then, suddenly, click. The hands spun. The children smiled. The air in the entryway thickened, pressing down on him like water. His vision blurred. The house seemed to lean inward, its walls groaning in pleasure. The man screamed as the shadows rose around him, wrapping tight, binding him to the floor. His body convulsed, back arching, eyes rolling white. The watch clattered from his grip, ticking in perfect rhythm once again. And when his voice finally broke, when the scream dissolved into silence, the shadows withdrew. What remained was not the man who had walked up Briar Lane. His eyes opened, black and glassy. His face was blank, expressionless. His body rose stiffly, like a marionette on unseen strings. The children parted, making space for him. The woman's voice drifted down the stairs, calm and certain. The keeper is made. The man, no, the thing he had become, turned toward the hall, silent, obedient. The house had claimed him. The children moved back up the stairs, single file, vanishing into the rooms one by one. Their bare feet left no sound now, only a faint whisper of air as they slipped into the shadows. Soon the landing was empty, the hall above still. The new keeper stood alone in the entryway. His body was rigid, his head tilted slightly to one side as though listening to something far away. His chest rose and fell in shallow, mechanical breaths. The pocket watch ticked faintly where it lay on the floor. The man's, no, the keeper's, eyes shifted toward it. Slowly, stiffly, he bent and picked it up again. His burned palm no longer blistered. The skin was pale and smooth, almost waxy. He closed the broken case, and though the glass was shattered, the tick grew stronger, louder, steady. From the parlor came the sound of a chair scraping across the floor. The keeper turned and walked toward it, steps slow, deliberate. The sheeted furniture loomed in the half-light, but one chair sat uncovered now. A high-backed armchair facing the window. The keeper approached, lowered himself stiffly into the seat. His hands folded in his lap, the watch resting in his palm. The rocking chair upstairs began again. Creak. Creak. The keeper's lips parted. His voice was hollow, monotone, stripped of all humanity. The gate is closed. The house waits. The floorboards beneath him groaned in approval. For a time, silence settled. The house breathed in rhythm with the ticking watch. The drapes shifted though no wind touched them. Dust motes swirled lazily in the faint moonlight. Then, from somewhere far beyond the iron fence, came the sound of footsteps. A passerby. The keeper's head turned sharply toward the sound, his neck cracking with the movement. His black eyes fixed on the door. The house pulsed once, low and deep, like a heart beating underground. The keeper rose. And the cycle began again. Daniel's sneakers slapped against cracked pavement as he half ran, half stumbled down Briar Lane. His chest burned, each breath tearing at his throat, but he didn't dare stop. Not until the iron fence was out of sight, the house hidden by the curve of the road and the sagging trees. Only then did he collapse onto the curb, clutching his side. His hands shook violently. The night air felt real here, sharp and cold in his lungs. The crickets sang, faint and steady, as though mocking how normal everything was beyond that fence. I made it, he whispered to himself, over and over. I made it out. It let me out. But the words felt fragile. Thin. He forced himself to stand, swaying slightly. The street was empty, save for the quiet hum of a streetlight farther down. His parents' house was only a few blocks away. He could walk there, crawl into bed, pretend none of this had ever happened. He turned to leave, and froze. Behind him, the gate stood shut. The oaks loomed tall and still. The house itself was dark, no glow in the windows, no sound but the wind. Yet as Daniel stared, he swore the front door shifted slightly. Just enough for him to glimpse the faintest glow within. And then it closed again. Daniel's skin crawled. He backed away, turned, and forced himself down the street. By the time he reached his parents' house, his legs felt like lead. He slipped inside quietly, not wanting to wake them. The living room smelled of familiar things: old carpet, laundry detergent, a hint of the dog that had died years ago. For the first time in hours, he felt almost safe. He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. That was when he heard it. Tick. Soft. Almost imagined. He froze, lifted his head. The room was silent. He laughed nervously. Just me. Just my head. He leaned back, closing his eyes. His heart finally slowed, exhaustion tugging at him. Sleep pressed at the edges of his mind. But before he drifted off, he heard it again. Tick. 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 Slow. Steady. Coming from somewhere in the room. Daniel's eyes snapped open. And on the coffee table, where he had left nothing, lay a silver pocket watch. Its glass face was shattered. Its hands trembled with each tick. His blood turned to ice. The woman's whisper slid across the dark. The gate follows. Daniel didn't move. Couldn't. His gaze locked on the pocket watch ticking faintly on the coffee table. The brass chain coiled like a snake, its end dangling over the edge. Every tick landed in his chest like a hammer blow. No, he whispered. His voice was weak, cracked. I smashed you. You're gone. But the watch ticked on, steady as a heartbeat. Daniel inched forward, hand trembling, as though to test if it was really there. His fingertips brushed the cool metal, real, solid. The tick grew louder at his touch. He yanked his hand back as though burned. From upstairs came the creak of a floorboard. Slow. Heavy. His parents' bedroom was up there. Daniel's breath caught. No. No, not here. Not them. He snatched the watch from the table, clutching it so hard the jagged glass cut his palm again. His own blood smeared across the face, but the hands didn't falter. Tick. 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 He stumbled to the back door, fumbling with the lock. The night air poured in cold and real. He hurled the watch into the yard, listening to it vanish into the dark. Silence. His chest heaved. He pressed his hands to the counter, sucking in shaky breaths. Then, tick. He turned slowly. The watch sat on the kitchen table. Daniel's stomach lurched. He staggered back until he struck the fridge. His breath fogged in the air, though the heater hummed steady in the vents. From the hallway, faint but certain, came a sound he never wanted to hear again: the laughter of children. High-pitched. Giggling. Mocking. Daniel's parents slept upstairs. He had to keep it away from them. His hands shook as he grabbed the watch again, ignoring the pain, and bolted toward the front door. The house on Briar Lane was miles away, but somehow, as he pulled the door open, the night air carried the faint smell of rot and apples. And down the dark street, under the halo of the nearest lamp, he saw them. Children. Dozens. Standing shoulder to shoulder, their black eyes fixed on him. The woman's voice slid out of the shadows, almost tender. You cannot outrun the gate. Daniel froze on the threshold, his hand white-knuckled around the watch. The children didn't move. They stood beneath the glow of the street lamp, pale faces lifted, black eyes shining like wet glass. The mist around them curled low, clinging to their legs as though the night itself held them in place. His heart hammered. Stay away, he croaked, voice shaking. Don't come any closer. The children did not answer. Behind him, the house was silent. Too silent. He risked a glance over his shoulder. His parents' home sat dark and peaceful, curtains drawn, porch light humming faintly. The normalcy of it made his skin crawl worse. When he turned back, the children had moved. Not walking. Not running. Just closer. A single blink, and they now stood at the foot of his driveway, still shoulder to shoulder, still staring. Daniel's knees buckled. He stumbled back into the house, slamming the door shut. His breath came ragged, loud in the hush of the living room. He pressed his back to the door, chest heaving, whispering to himself like a prayer. They're not here. They're not here. I left them there. Tick. The watch pulsed in his palm. No! He hurled it across the room. It struck the wall, bounced to the floor, and landed neatly upright, ticking steadily as though nothing had touched it. The laughter started again. Not outside this time. Inside. Faint, drifting through the vents, as though the house's air carried it. Daniel's blood ran cold. He bolted up the stairs 2 at a time. His parents were still asleep. They had to be. He burst into their bedroom. Moonlight fell across the bed. The quilt was smooth, untouched. Empty. No, Daniel whispered, stepping closer. The pillows bore the faint indentations of heads, as though someone had just been there. Warm still, as if they had only moments before risen. His throat closed. He spun toward the hall. And saw them. The children lined the upstairs landing, blocking every door. Dozens of them. Silent. Perfectly still. At their center stood the woman. Her hair hung in a veil, her pale hand resting lightly on the banister. When she spoke, her words rattled Daniel's bones. The gate does not release. It follows. Always. Daniel's back hit the wall. His palms stung with sweat and blood, his chest heaving. The woman stood still at the center of the children, her face veiled by that curtain of tangled hair. The silence around her was suffocating, heavier than any scream. He forced his voice out, thin, cracked. Why me? I never wanted this. I didn't choose this. Her head tilted, just a fraction too far to one side. The children's black eyes shifted in unison, fixed on him like birds on a wire. You opened the gate, she said, her voice rippling through the air. You stepped inside. That is enough. Daniel's throat burned. I didn't know, no one told me. Her hair shifted as though stirred by unseen breath. All who enter know. They feel it before they cross. The ones who stay pretend not to hear. The watch ticked loudly on the floor below, echoing up the stairwell. With every beat, the wallpaper near him curled and peeled, revealing raw boards underneath. The air thickened, pressing against his skin like wet cloth. Daniel tried to move toward the stairs, but the hallway stretched as he stepped. What should have been a few feet yawned into yards, the rug rolling endlessly beneath him. He stumbled forward, panting, only to find himself no closer. He turned, desperate, toward a bedroom door. He yanked it open, and froze. It wasn't a bedroom anymore. It was the parlor. The same draped furniture. The same broken chandelier fragments. The same chair turned toward the window. He slammed the door shut, heart slamming. He spun to the opposite door, ripped it open. The parlor again. Every door. Every room. The house folding in on itself, reshaping until escape was impossible. Daniel fell to his knees, his voice breaking into a sob. Please! I just want to go home. The woman stepped forward. Her children parted to let her pass. She descended the hallway slowly, her bare feet silent, her presence suffocating. When she reached him, she crouched low, her tangled hair falling around his face like a curtain. He couldn't see her eyes, but he felt them, hollow, endless, pressing against his skull. Her whisper brushed his ear, colder than winter wind. Home is the house now. Daniel's body shook beneath her presence. He tried to push back, but his palms slid uselessly against the warped floor. The woman's hair fell over him, her shadow blotting out what little light remained. He whispered, voice cracking. I'm not staying. I won't stay. The children's mouths stretched open, not in sound, but in silence. Rows of teeth gleamed in the dark, too sharp, Too many. Their eyes burned black, deeper than void. The house groaned, a low shudder that rippled through the beams, rattling the windows in their frames. The wallpaper peeled faster, strips curling down the walls like dead skin. The woman tilted her head closer, and Daniel flinched as strands of her hair brushed his cheek, wet, sticky, carrying the faint smell of rot and apples. "You are breaking already," she whispered. Her voice seemed to come from inside him now, vibrating in his ribs. "The house knows. It tastes fear. It will shape you as it shaped the one before." Daniel's stomach twisted. "No. I saw him. I saw what it did to him. I'm not." The floor buckled beneath him. Boards groaned and bowed like ribs expanding, the rug splitting down the middle as if the house itself was opening its chest. From the gap rose shadows, thick and writhing, wrapping around his ankles. He kicked, thrashed, but the darkness clung like tar, climbing higher, searing cold into his skin. He screamed, his voice tearing raw. "Let me go!" The woman didn't move. Her hair still hid her ruined face, but Daniel felt her smile. "You freed one when you broke the watch," she said. "The house keeps balance. One in, one out." The shadows dragged harder, pulling him to the floor, pinning his wrists. He felt his body sinking, boards groaning beneath him as though they would swallow him whole. "Then take me," Daniel gasped, desperation surging. "Take me instead of someone else. Don't drag anyone else in." For the first time, her voice softened. Almost kind. Almost human. "You think the house bargains. It does not. It feeds." Her hand rose. Long, pale fingers curled, sharp at the tips. She pressed one against his chest, right over his pounding heart. The tick of the watch below thundered in perfect rhythm. And Daniel realized the house wasn't just listening. It was learning his heartbeat. Her finger pressed harder against his chest. The spot above his heart burned, searing through skin and bone. Daniel arched his back and screamed, the sound swallowed instantly by the walls. His vision blurred with pain as the woman leaned closer, her hair spilling like a veil around him. The children shifted behind her. Their black eyes glittered, their mouths hanging open, breathless with expectation. They rocked gently in unison, as though the rhythm of the watch pulsed through them, too. Daniel thrashed against the shadows pinning his wrists, but the harder he pulled, the tighter they constricted, cold slicing into his veins. His body shook with exhaustion. "No!" he rasped, spitting blood onto the boards. "I'm not yours, I won't be!" The burning deepened. His heartbeat thudded in his ears, sinking with the relentless tick-tick-tick. The pressure in his chest grew unbearable, as though the house itself were pressing down, testing if his body could contain it. He forced his eyes open, glaring at her through sweat and tears. "You can't keep me!" Her hands stilled. Her head twitched once, a bird-like tilt. "The house keeps all." Then her finger pushed deeper, too deep. His skin split, blood searing hot as it ran down his shirt. Daniel cried out, thrashing wildly, clawing at the shadows with shredded nails. His scream tore through the house. And then, the burning stopped. He gasped, blinking through the haze. The woman's hand had withdrawn. Her hair still veiled her face, but something glistened beneath it, dark streaks dripping from her hollow eyes. "You are not ready," she whispered. Daniel looked down at his chest. The skin was torn, but beneath the blood, he saw something worse, a mark. Not carved, not burned, but grown. Black veins spiderwebbed outward from a single sigil over his heart, an imprint shaped like the watch's face, its frozen hands locked at midnight. He gagged, clutching at it. The veins pulsed faintly beneath his fingers, as though something beat inside him that wasn't his own heart. The woman stood slowly, rising to her full height. Her children parted once more, their eyes never leaving him. "The house has claimed you," she said, her voice echoing through the beams. "But not yet. Not whole. You are tethered." Daniel dragged himself up on shaking arms, his voice hoarse. "Then I'll cut the tether." The woman stilled. For the first time, he felt hesitation in the air. like the house itself leaned in to listen. "You cannot cut what you cannot see," she whispered. Daniel's eyes darted to the floor, to the walls, to the shadows curling hungrily around the rug. His chest burned with every beat of the black mark. But his mind, frantic, desperate, latched onto a single thought. If the house could brand him, maybe it could also bleed. And if it could bleed, maybe he could kill it. Daniel staggered to his feet, chest burning beneath the spreading black veins. His breath rasped, sweat dripping down his face. The woman and her children watched without moving, silent sentinels, waiting. "If there's a heart," he muttered, clutching his chest, "I'll find it. I'll rip it out. I'll end this." The walls groaned in answer. The house heard him. From deep inside, a low thrum began. Not a sound, but a vibration, shaking the floor beneath his feet, rattling the windows. The children smiled, their jagged teeth gleaming faintly. The woman's voice curled through the air, soft and coaxing. "Then follow." The floorboards shifted. A seam split open down the hall, boards yawning apart like a wound. Dust fell in clouds as the rug peeled back, exposing a staircase spiraling downward into blackness. Daniel's stomach turned. His pulse pounded in his ears. The woman extended her pale hand toward the gap, her hair still veiling her ruined face. "The heart waits." Daniel's instinct screamed at him not to go. But the veins in his chest throbbed harder, blackness spreading across his skin. He didn't have a choice. He had to try. He stumbled toward the gap. The children parted, whispering in voices not their own. Snatches of words spilled from their lips, pleas, prayers, cries for help. "Don't go. It's not the heart. It's the mouth." Daniel froze, staring at them. Their lips weren't moving, but the voices poured out, layered and desperate. The woman tilted her head. Her tone hardened. "Go down." Daniel clenched his fists. His whole body trembled with fear, but rage pushed him forward. He set his foot on the first stair. The wood pulsed under his shoe, warm like flesh. Step by step he descended. The shadows pressed close around him, breathing against his skin, whispering with every tick of the watch in his veins. The air grew wet, heavy, smelling of rot and copper. At the bottom stretched a vast chamber. Its walls were not wood, but living, beating. Black veins pulsed through them, glowing faintly with sick light. And at the center, rising from the floor, was a mass of shadow and bone. A ribcage split wide, cradling a lump of flesh that throbbed in rhythm with his branded heart. Daniel's stomach lurched. He gagged, clutching his chest. The woman's whisper coiled down the stairwell, echoing in his skull. "Strike it, and you are mine." Daniel's breath hitched as he stepped into the chamber. The stench of rot was suffocating, thick enough to coat his tongue. His shoes stuck against the pulsing floor with every step, each one squelching as though he were walking through a living lump. The heart, if that's what it was, throbbed in the ribcage of bone, swelling and shrinking with a wet rhythm. Each beat echoed in his own chest, black veins burning hotter with every pulse. His knees trembled. He wanted to collapse, but the pressure in his chest forced him forward. The mark over his heart glowed faintly, bleeding shadow through his shirt. He staggered closer, whispering through clenched teeth. "If I kill you, I kill all of this." His fingers brushed the ribcage. It was warm, slick. The bone flexed like cartilage, bending beneath his touch. His stomach lurched as he gagged bile into the shadows. "Strike it," the woman's voice urged, her whisper filling the chamber. "End your suffering. End the house. All it takes is one blow." Daniel clenched his fists. His chest screamed with the need to obey, every vein throbbing in sync with the heart. He lifted a jagged shard of bone from the floor, sharp enough to cut his palm. He raised it high. But then, a voice. Not hers. It came from beneath the beating mass, muffled but urgent, raw with pain. "Don't, it's not the heart." Daniel froze. The bone trembled in his hand. His breath came ragged. "Who's there?" The voice choked, strained. "It feeds on the willing. Strike it, and you'll be bound forever." The woman's whisper coiled tighter, harsher now. Do not listen. They lie. They all lie. Daniel staggered back, his head pounding as two voices warred in his skull, the woman's command and the hidden warning beneath the heart. He pressed the shard to his chest instead, just above the black mark. If it's a tether, then maybe I cut it myself. The chamber shuddered. The walls split, shadows shrieking as the false heart throbbed harder, desperate. And for the first time, the woman's voice broke, not calm, not certain. No, not that. Daniel's grip on the bone shard shook so violently it cut deeper into his palm. Blood dripped down his wrist, warm against the cold air of the chamber. The black veins in his chest pulsed, tugging his arm toward the false heart, urging him to strike. But the words he'd heard, "It's not the heart," dug in deeper than the mark's pull. He staggered closer to the ribcage, peering through the slick, pulsing gaps. The heart swelled and shrank, wet and furious, but beneath it, in the tangle of shadows, something shifted. A shape. A man's face, gaunt and pale, his mouth struggling to form words. Daniel's throat tightened. You! The man coughed, spattering black fluid down his chin. His hollow eyes met Daniel's. Don't strike it, that's the trap. It's the mouth. It devours the ones who believe. The bone shard trembled in Daniel's grip. His heartbeat thundered, syncing with the chamber's pulse. Above him, the woman's voice lashed out, no longer soothing but sharp, angry. Do not listen. He belongs to me. All of them do. You are not different. The face beneath the false heart twisted in pain. His words came fast, desperate. It binds itself with lies. You have to resist its gift. Find the true heart. It hides it. The walls groaned. The chamber screamed as if the house itself had been insulted. Veins bulged along the walls, pumping harder, spraying black ichor onto the floor. Daniel dropped to his knees, clutching his head. His mind reeled between the two voices, the woman's commands and the man's pleas. His chest burned, the mark pulsing like a second heart inside him. The man's voice cracked, ragged. If you strike that thing, you'll be swallowed. Like me. Like the rest. Daniel's breath came fast, shallow. He raised the shard again, this time not toward the false heart, not toward his own chest, but toward the ribcage itself. The woman's scream ripped through the chamber. No, do not open it! The bones flexed, shuddered, trying to close. Daniel drove the shard deep between two ribs. The cage split open with a wet crack, shadows exploding outward like smoke under pressure. The false heart shrieked, thrashing violently. Beneath it, the man's face grew clearer. His hands clawed upward, black veins trailing from his arms like chains. And Daniel realized with horror. The man wasn't trapped beneath the heart. He was the heart. The man's features wavered, twisting through the shadows like liquid. His hollow eyes locked on Daniel's, mouth working frantically. At first, it was just the same gaunt face, pale, worn, stranger. But then it shifted. The angles softened, hair darkened, the jawline reshaped. The lips, splitting, dripping with black ichor, took on a shape Daniel knew too well. His breath caught. His chest clenched until he thought his ribs would crack. No, he whispered. No, it's not. The face stared up at him now with bloodshot eyes that weren't hollow at all. They were familiar. Terrifyingly familiar. Daniel, it croaked. The voice was weak, broken, but it was his father's. Daniel stumbled back, bow rising in his throat. That's not real. You're not him. You can't be. The false heart throbbed harder, shaking the chamber walls. Veins bulged and split, spraying hot ichor across Daniel's shoes. The face strained upward, chains of black veins tearing free of its flesh. Son, it rasped. Help me, kill it. Daniel's entire body trembled. His father had died 3 years ago. He'd buried him. He'd spoken at the funeral, clenched his fists as they lowered the coffin. This couldn't be him, couldn't. The woman's laugh slid through the chamber, brittle and cruel. It will wear the faces you love until you believe. Strike it, and it will keep you both. The face in the heart screamed, black ichor bursting from its mouth. Don't listen! Please, Daniel, please, help me! The bone shard in his hand shook violently, nearly slipping from his grasp. His chest burned hotter, the mark pulsing in sync with the heart's desperate throbs. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut, tears burning. You're not him. You're not. But when he opened them again, the face was closer, the features sharper. And in those familiar eyes, his father's eyes, he saw something that made his own heart split open: recognition. It wasn't just wearing his father's face. It knew him. Son, the thing sobbed. Don't leave me here. The woman's scream tore through the chamber. Strike it! Daniel raised the shard high, every nerve in his body screaming at him to drive it down, to end the horror. The mark in his chest pulsed furiously, demanding blood, demanding release. The chamber throbbed with it, a living drumbeat rattling his bones. The face in the heart, his father's face, looked up at him, lips trembling, black ichor spilling down its chin. Daniel, help me end this! Tears streaked Daniel's face. His chest convulsed with sobs. He wanted, God, he wanted to believe it. But beneath the pleading words, he felt a pull, the same as the watch, the same as the mark, a trap. No, Daniel whispered. His voice cracked, but the word cut like glass. You're not him. He hurled the shard across the chamber. It clattered against the wet floor, vanishing into the shadows. The face twisted instantly. The sorrow melted into rage. The lips peeled back, revealing teeth too sharp, too many. The eyes that had seemed so familiar flared black, burning with hunger. The false heart shrieked, a sound like metal tearing in half. The chamber walls split, veins bursting, ichor raining down. The woman's scream thundered above it all, furious, piercing. Fool! Shadows whipped out from the walls, slamming into Daniel, hurling him backward into the wet floor. His head cracked against the pulsing ground, stars exploding across his vision. The black veins in his chest writhed violently, spreading down his arms, up his neck. The woman's voice roared, shaking the chamber. You deny the gift! Then you will feed it! The ribcage around the false heart snapped shut with a sickening crunch. The face disappeared inside, still screaming, until the sound muffled into silence. The entire chamber pulsed, alive with fury. Daniel clawed at the floor, dragging himself toward the stairwell, but the ground beneath him rippled like water, pulling him back. The black mark on his chest seared. His pulse staggered, no longer his own. He felt the house's heartbeat overtaking his, forcing it into rhythm. His vision blurred. His strength faltered. And from deep inside the walls, dozens of voices whispered as one. Keeper! Darkness swallowed him whole. His body went limp, dragged under by the pulse of the house until he couldn't tell where his heartbeat ended and the ticking began. For a time, seconds, hours, maybe days, there was nothing. Then Daniel's eyes snapped open. He lay in a bed. Not the chamber, not the pulsing floor, but a proper bed, old, heavy quilt pulled over his chest. The smell of apples and smoke lingered faintly in the air, though here it was softer, almost comforting. He sat up with a gasp. The quilt slid from his chest, revealing the black sigil etched into his skin, its veins pulsing faintly beneath his flesh. His heart beat once, twice, and the veins twitched in perfect rhythm. No, he whispered. His hand clawed at the mark, nails digging into his skin until blood welled. But the veins sank deeper, as if retreating from his touch, hiding beneath the muscle where he could never reach. The room around him was small, dim. Wallpaper peeled in long strips, but the dresser was neatly arranged, and the candle on it flickered steady. The rocking chair sat in the corner, occupied. The woman. Her hair hung in curtains, her hands folded in her lap. She sat so still she might have been carved from the shadows. Only the faintest rise and fall of her chest betrayed her. Daniel's throat closed. Why am I here? His voice cracked, weak as a child's. She tilted her head slightly, and for the first time, he thought he saw movement beneath the hair, her mouth curling in a faint smile. "You are resting," she said softly. "The house is patient. It takes in its time." Daniel shook his head violently. "No. I'm leaving. I'll find the door. I'll—" Her hand rose, one pale finger extended. The quilt yanked itself tight around his body, pinning him to the bed. He thrashed, but the fabric constricted until he couldn't move his arms. "The door has closed," she whispered. "It closed the moment you opened it. You were chosen then. You will fight, but you will stay." The shadows in the corners deepened. Small shapes moved within them. Children, dozens of them, silent, climbing from the dark, surrounding the bed. Their black eyes gleamed in the candlelight. Daniel's pulse hammered. His chest burned. His voice cracked into a scream. "I'm not your keeper!" The woman leaned forward slowly. Her hair shifted, parting just enough for him to glimpse the empty sockets of her eyes. "You are already." Daniel's scream echoed until his throat burned raw, but the walls absorbed it greedily, as though feeding on the sound. The quilt pressed tighter, heavy as stone, pinning him to the mattress. His chest heaved in shallow bursts, the mark over his heart pulsing with each frantic beat. The children gathered closer, silent silhouettes encircling the bed. Their faces glowed faintly in the candlelight, gaunt, pale, each pair of eyes two pits of bottomless black. They didn't blink. They didn't breathe. They just watched. Daniel twisted against the suffocating quilt until sweat poured down his face. "Please!" His voice cracked into a whisper. "Please, just let me go." The rocking chair creaked once. The woman sat unmoving, but her hair shifted with the sound. Her voice was calm, almost kind. "You asked to end the house? Now you must learn it. Night after night, until you no longer resist." The mark burned hot, a searing brand beneath his skin. Daniel bit down on a cry, tears stinging his eyes. The children tilted their heads together in eerie unison, as though savoring his pain. The candle on the dresser guttered suddenly. Its flame thinned, stretched, then split into dozens of smaller flames that floated free, drifting like fireflies. They circled the bed, their glow flickering across the quilt that bound him. Daniel stared, wide-eyed. The flames formed shapes in the air, faces. Not children's faces, not strangers. Faces he knew. His father. His mother. Friends long gone. Each one stared at him, mouths moving silently. The quilt pressed harder, forcing the air from his lungs as though the house wanted him to listen, not to their words, but to his own heart. Tick. 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 The sound filled the room, louder than ever, sinking with the mark in his chest. Each tick pressed heavier against his ribs. Daniel shook his head violently, tears spilling. "You're not them! You're not!" The woman leaned forward slowly, her ruined sockets gleaming in the shifting light. "They were keepers once. They begged as you do now. The house remembers them through you." The candle flames winked out one by one until only darkness remained. In the silence, Daniel heard it, the faint scrape of the front gate opening outside. Someone else had stepped onto Briar Lane. The woman's whisper slid into his ear, colder than the night itself. "Watch closely. Your first offering comes." Daniel thrashed against the quilt, but it only constricted tighter, squeezing the air from his chest. His breath came in ragged bursts, shallow, burning. The mark over his heart pulsed hot, glowing faintly beneath his shirt. The woman rose from the rocking chair. Her hair swayed like wet rope, her long fingers trailing the air. She didn't touch him, but the quilt cinched harder, forcing his head to the side, toward the window. "See," she whispered. Outside, the oaks bowed heavy over the gate. Mist clung to the street. A figure approached, shoes clicking softly against the cracked pavement. A young woman, college-aged, Daniel guessed, hood pulled up, phone in hand. She glanced at the house as she passed, her eyes drawn almost unwillingly to the iron fence. Daniel's stomach lurched. He tried to shout, to warn her, but the quilt pressed his jaw shut. His voice strangled into silence. The gate swung open on its own. The woman hesitated, phone lowering, gaze fixed on the yawning dark of the porch. Daniel's chest clenched as she stepped forward, her hand brushing the gate. No, he thought, tears streaming. Don't do it. Please don't. The front door drifted open as if welcoming her. The newcomer paused, glancing around the empty street. Then, almost dreamlike, she walked up the path, her steps crunching softly in the weeds. The porch boards groaned as she mounted them. The children in Daniel's room began to giggle. Low, stifled at first, then swelling into a chorus of mocking laughter. Their black eyes glinted in the dark as they crowded closer around the bed. The woman in the rocking chair whispered again, her voice laced with satisfaction. The house feeds. You will learn to hunger as it does. Daniel's vision blurred with rage and despair. He strained against the quilt until his muscles screamed, until he thought his ribs would snap. The mark on his chest throbbed harder, sinking with the newcomer's slow ascent up the stairs below. Every beat told him the same thing. He was tethered to her fate. And if the house took her, it would root itself deeper into him. The quilt cinched tighter, the air leaving Daniel's lungs in shallow gasps. His vision darkened at the edges. The children crowded close to the bed, their pale faces beaming with silent laughter, black eyes reflecting the candle's dim glow. Downstairs, the front door closed with a hollow boom. Footsteps creaked across the entryway floor. Slow. Hesitant. The girl was inside. Daniel's chest spasmed. Rage surged through him, raw and wild, cutting through his terror. He bucked against the quilt, screaming into the fabric though no sound escaped. The mark over his heart blazed hot, burning through his ribs. The quilt groaned, threads straining. A tear split near his elbow. Another by his knee. The woman's head snapped toward him, hair swaying. For the first time, her whisper carried urgency, almost sharp. Lie still. Daniel thrashed harder. His body convulsed until his muscles screamed. The quilt ripped wider at the seams, threads snapping one by one. His right arm tore free, slick with sweat and blood. He gasped, air flooding back into his lungs. His voice ripped out raw, hoarse, but loud enough to carry. Get out! Don't come upstairs! The footsteps below froze. Silence spread through the house like a held breath. Then the girl's voice, thin and shaking. Hello? Who's there? The children around Daniel went silent. Their mouths opened in unison, too wide, their faces stretching in grotesque anticipation. The woman in the rocking chair stood, her shadow towering along the wall. You called too late, she whispered. The footsteps below resumed, faster now, as if the girl had been hooked by invisible strings. She mounted the staircase, each step groaning under her weight. Daniel ripped harder at the quilt, his free hand clawing at the threads binding his chest. The mark over his heart throbbed painfully, veins writhing under his skin as if fighting him. The girl reached the landing. Her hood fell back, revealing wide eyes fixed blankly ahead. She didn't look at Daniel. She didn't see him thrashing, screaming, bleeding. She just walked past, silent, as though drawn deeper into the house. No! Daniel roared, tearing another arm free, dragging his body upright despite the shadows still gripping his legs. His chest burned like fire, his vision blurred with blood and tears. Look at me! He screamed at her. Don't listen! Don't! She turned her head slowly, and Daniel's heart froze. Her eyes were already black. The girl's black eyes gleamed in the dim light of the hall. For a heartbeat Daniel thought she was another phantom, one of the house's endless tricks. But then her lips trembled. Help me! She whispered. Her voice was her own. Human. Terrified. Daniel's chest clenched. I'm trying! He wrenched at the quilt, ripping it wider, dragging one leg free. His muscles screamed as he lurched forward, nearly falling onto the floor. The girl staggered, her hands clutching her hoodie strings as though fighting something unseen. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I can't move, I can't stop. The children around Daniel began to laugh, high-pitched and cruel, their voices overlapping in a shrill chorus. They pressed closer, boxing him in, their small hands reaching for his arms, his face, his throat. "No!" Daniel roared, throwing one off, clawing his way forward across the floor. His chest burned hotter, the marks searing with each heartbeat. The girl's steps faltered. She reached the top of the stairs, her body jerking like a puppet yanked by tangled strings. Her mouth opened in a scream that didn't sound like her own. It was layered, distorted, full of voices not hers. The woman stepped into the hall behind her. Her pale hand rose, hair shrouding her ruined face. The girl convulsed, back arching, hands clawing at her own eyes. She screamed until her voice broke, until blood streamed down her cheeks. Daniel lunged forward, tearing the last of the quilt from his legs. He collapsed onto his knees, crawling, his throat ripping raw. "Let her go!" The woman's hand pressed down gently on the girl's head. Her voice was soft, merciless. "She is the offering." The girl's scream cut off. Her body stilled. When she raised her face again, her eyes were empty pits of black. Daniel's heart dropped into ice. "No, no, no, please!" The girl turned toward him, her new voice layered, echoing, inhuman. "You should not have called me here." The children erupted in laughter, surrounding them both. The woman's hair swayed as though in triumph. And Daniel understood with sick horror. It hadn't been chance that brought the girl. The house had dragged her here, through him. Daniel's breath came in broken gasps as the truth sank in. His scream hadn't been a warning. It had been a summons. The house had reached through him, through the mark in his chest, and pulled her here. He staggered back onto his feet, his legs trembling. "No," he rasped. "I didn't bring her. I didn't." The woman's voice slid over the children's laughter, smooth and merciless. "You did. You called." The house answered. The girl's body jerked forward, her steps puppet-like, strings of black ichor running from her eyes. She reached toward Daniel with trembling hands, her voice fractured between her own and something deeper. "Help me! You brought me! I can't stop!" Daniel's stomach turned. His palms bled as he clawed at the mark over his heart, tearing at his own flesh in desperation. "Get out of me!" he screamed, but the veins only burrowed deeper, pulsing harder. The children swarmed, clutching at his arms, dragging him down. Their touch burned cold, their laughter deafening. He swung wildly, knocking one aside, but another clamped onto his wrist, another onto his throat. The girl dropped to her knees, clutching her head, her screams shattering into a dozen voices at once. Her body convulsed, twitching violently. Daniel broke free of the children just long enough to reach her. He grabbed her shoulders, shaking her, his tears blinding him. "Fight it!" he shouted. "It's not you! It's not you!" Her black eyes rolled, catching faint flickers of their former brown. For a heartbeat she looked at him, really looked at him, and he saw her humanity still burning beneath the horror. "Please!" she whispered. Then her mouth stretched too wide. Shadows poured out, black smoke spilling from her throat, flooding the hallway. Daniel reeled back, coughing, his lungs burning as the mist clawed its way inside him. The woman raised her hand. The children fell silent. Her whisper echoed in the smoke, cold and final. "She is claimed! And you, keeper, are the lure!" The girl's body stilled. When her head lifted again, her black eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Her voice, no longer her own, carried the weight of the house itself. "You cannot save me. You can only serve." Daniel collapsed to his knees, the black mark in his chest pulsing with violent heat. His breath tore from him in a sob. The truth was unbearable. The house had not just trapped him. It had made him bait. Daniel knelt on the warped boards, chest heaving, the black mark searing him from the inside. His eyes blurred with tears as the girl, no, the thing the girl had become, rose slowly to her feet. Her movements were stiff, jerking at first, like marionette strings being pulled too tight. But then they smoothed, her body moving with an unnatural grace, as if her bones had been rearranged to fit the house. She stood before the woman, head bowed. The long hair that once framed her face clung in damp strands streaked with black. Her lips parted, and when she spoke, the words came in a dozen overlapping voices. "I will serve." The children clapped, the sound sharp and wrong, their laughter tumbling into giggles that scraped like knives against Daniel's ears. Daniel pushed himself up, swaying. "No," he croaked. "That's not her. You can't have her." The woman turned toward him, her ruined sockets gleaming in the dim light. "She is already mine. As you are." The girl lifted her face. For just a moment, Daniel thought he saw her humanity flicker through, eyes wide, lips trembling. "Daniel!" she whispered, her voice her own again. His heart clenched. "Yes. That's you. Fight it. Fight it." But then her expression twisted into a wide, cruel grin. The black swallowed her eyes completely, her head cocking at the same unnatural angle as the children's. Her voice layered once more. "You will help me call the next." Daniel's stomach dropped into ice. He staggered back, his hands clawing at his hair. "No. No, I won't." The woman stepped closer, hair brushing against his arm as she leaned down. Her whisper pressed cold into his ear, heavy as chains. "You already have. Every cry for help, every scream, every plea, it carries beyond the gate. They hear it. They come. And they always will." Daniel's chest burned until he thought it would burst. He screamed, the sound raw, desperate, tearing from his lungs. And outside, through the cracked window, the front gate creaked open again. The girl turned her head toward the sound, her lips stretched in a smile. The echo of Daniel's scream still rang in his ears when he heard it, the gate outside, creaking open. Slow, patient, hungry. His chest collapsed with dread. "No," he whispered, clutching the mark. "Not again." The girl, now servant of the house, smiled wide, her black eyes glinting like whetstones. "They hear you," she said, her voice layered with a dozen tones. "They always will." The woman in the rocking chair straightened, hair swaying like a curtain in unseen wind. She raised her pale hand, and the children hushed instantly, eyes gleaming as they turned toward the stairs. Waiting. Footsteps crunched outside the door. Someone else drawn in. Daniel dropped to his knees, hands clamping over his own mouth. His chest heaved with sobs, but he bit down hard on them, choking on his own breath rather than make another sound. Tears streamed hot down his face. The mark over his heart pulsed harder, tick-tick-tick in rhythm, each beat like a hammer in his ribs. It wanted him to cry out. It wanted him to summon another. The girl tilted her head, watching him struggle. "Don't fight it. It hurts more when you fight." Daniel shook his head violently, teeth grinding until his jaw ached. He gagged against his own hand, strangling every sound, refusing to give the house what it wanted. The footsteps outside reached the porch. The boards groaned under new weight. Daniel's vision blurred. His lungs screamed for release. His throat burned with the swallowed cry clawing to get out. The woman leaned close, her whisper curling into his ear. "Silence is useless. The house does not need your voice. It is your voice." The mark flared, blinding pain ripping through his chest. Daniel's jaw snapped open against his will, air tearing from his throat. And his scream ripped through the house, deeper and louder than before. Outside, the front door swung open on its own. The children laughed. The girl clapped. The woman smiled unseen. And Daniel's heart broke, because he knew the truth. He wasn't just trapped. He was the call. The door at the bottom of the stairs groaned open. The sound echoed through the house like a sigh of satisfaction. Daniel's chest heaved, his throat raw, his screams still vibrating in the beams of the walls. He pressed his palms against his mouth, sobbing, shaking his head over and over. "I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it." But the gate had already given way. A figure stepped inside. A boy this time, barely a teenager. Backpack slung over one shoulder, sneakers squeaking on the warped floor. His eyes darted around nervously, drawn not by curiosity but by compulsion. He didn't even seem to notice the door closing behind him. Daniel's stomach lurched. "No," he rasped. His voice was barely a whisper, but the mark burned hotter for even that small sound. The children lining the hall giggled, their heads tilting as one. The girl stood at their center, smiling wide. "He's yours," she crooned. "You called him. You must welcome him." Daniel staggered to his feet, his whole body shaking. "I won't!" The woman's ruined sockets glinted faintly beneath her veil of hair. "You will. You already have." The boy climbed the first stair, his face blank, as though walking in his sleep. Daniel lurched forward, grabbing the rail, shouting through tears. "Turn back! Don't come up here!" The boy stopped. For a moment, just a moment, clarity flickered in his eyes. His lip trembled. He shook his head like someone waking from a dream. "Yes," Daniel sobbed. "Fight it! Don't let it!" The mark seared his chest, white hot, forcing his body to convulse. His mouth snapped open, his scream ripping free without his consent. "Come in!" The boy's face slackened. His eyes rolled black. He resumed climbing the stairs, step by step, the sound echoing like nails driven into Daniel's skull. The children clapped and cheered, their laughter shrill, merciless. The girl extended her hand to the boy as he reached the top. He took it willingly, shadows wrapping his wrists like chains. Daniel collapsed to his knees, sobbing so hard he could barely breathe. His voice broke in a hoarse whisper. "Please, please, no more." The woman leaned close, her whisper cold against his ear. "You cannot beg the house to starve." Daniel rocked on his knees, his body racked with sobs. The children's laughter drilled into his skull, bouncing in echoes he couldn't shut out. The boy, now claimed, stood beside the girl, both smiling with their black, bottomless eyes. Their small hands clasped like siblings bound in shadow. The mark in Daniel's chest throbbed hotter, every pulse a command, "Call more. Call again." He clutched his throat with trembling fingers. His voice was the weapon, the lure, the chain. If he couldn't scream, if he couldn't speak, then maybe the house would lose its hold. His nails dug into his neck, dragging furrows of blood. "I'll stop you," he rasped. "I'll tear it out." The woman's whisper slithered through the dark. "Do it. Spill yourself. The house will take your silence too." Her words only drove him further. He forced his hand deeper, fingers clawing for his own larynx, choking himself until black dots clouded his vision. His throat tore with a ragged cry, more blood than sound. But the house laughed. The children howled in delight. The girl tilted her head, her smile stretching too wide. "You can't take it out. The house lives in it now." Daniel collapsed forward, gagging, blood dripping onto the warped boards. His voice rasped brokenly, weak as a whisper, yet still carrying through the walls, tick, tick, tick. Not words, but the sound of the watch, spilling from his ruined throat without his will. His stomach heaved. Horror curdled his insides. He wasn't just the call. He was becoming the clock. The boy and girl stepped closer, their shadows stretching long. The children followed, encircling Daniel in a ring of pale faces. They chanted in voices that weren't their own. "Keep her, keep her, keep her." Daniel clawed at the mark, screaming until his voice tore raw, though even his screams now ticked in rhythm. His body shook with terror, rage, despair. And the house whispered back, patient, certain. "You will not be silent. You will call them all." Daniel collapsed onto his side, throat raw, chest aflame. Every gasp that tore from his lungs carried with it the rhythm of ticking, steady and inescapable. Tick, tick, tick. His own voice had become the sound he feared most. The children tightened their ring around him, swaying in unison. Their black eyes gleamed as they whispered, voices blending into the steady drone of a chant. "Keep her clock, keep her clock." The girl and boy stood at the front of the circle, hands clasped, their smiles stretched too wide. Their voices overlapped as they spoke, eerie and inhuman. "The gate hears your heart. The gate opens when you break. You are the rhythm now. Daniel shook his head violently, his bloody hands pressing over his ears. No! I'm not your. But his protest ended in a tick. His throat caught, his words warped, spilling out not as language but as the relentless beat of the watch. Tick, tick, tick. The woman stepped forward from the shadows. The children parted for her like water. She towered over him, hair swaying, her empty sockets glistening faintly. You see now, she whispered. The watch was never an object. It was a seed. It grows in you. It keeps time through you. Daniel sobbed, his chest convulsing. Please, don't make me do this. Her pale hand extended, pressing lightly against the mark over his heart. The veins writhed under her touch, spreading across his ribs, down his arms, up his neck. Each new thread pulsed with light, a network of black veins glowing faintly in rhythm. Daniel screamed as his body seized, arching against the floor. His scream broke into sharp, mechanical ticks, like gears grinding against one another. The sound filled the room, spilling through the walls, echoing down into the street outside. The children cheered, shrieking with laughter. The girl clapped her hands. The boy bowed his head. And outside, faint but certain, the iron gate groaned open once more. The woman bent low, her hair brushing his ear. Her whisper coiled inside him like chains tightening. You are the heartbeat. The keeper clock. Every second you live, the house will feed. Daniel's body trembled violently, pinned by his own cursed pulse. His vision blurred as he saw movement through the cracked window, shadows stirring at the gate. More footsteps approaching. His chest burned with despair. His voice ticked without his will. And he finally understood. Even if he stayed silent, the house would call through him. Daniel lay sprawled on the boards, chest heaving, body trembling under the weight of the mark. Each pulse carried not only the rhythm of the watch but something more, an echo of the house itself, seeping deeper with every tick. He pressed his bloody palms over his ears, trying to drown out the children's chant, but it didn't matter. The sound wasn't in the room anymore. It was inside him. Every heartbeat, every gasp, every thought was drowned by the ticking. Tick, tick, tick. The girl crouched before him, her black eyes wide, her smile almost sweet. She tilted her head like a doll being admired. You'll feel better soon, she whispered, her voice like silk stretched too thin. It hurts the most at the beginning. Then you forget. Daniel shuddered. Forget. The boy's voice followed, layered with static. Yes. The names. The faces. The fear. You'll forget until you are only the rhythm. That's when the house stops hurting you. Daniel shook his head violently, teeth gritted. No, I won't forget. I won't give it that. But even as he said it, memory slipped like sand through his fingers. He tried to picture his father's face, his mother's smile. They blurred, edges smudging, like photographs left in the rain. No, he gasped. He clawed at his temple, nails dragging furrows into his skin. Not them, please, not them. The woman leaned close, her hair brushing his bloody cheek. The house takes memory first. It strips you clean. Soon you will not remember who you were, only what you are. Her ruined sockets bored into him, hollow and endless. A keeper clock. The children erupted in laughter, circling faster, chanting louder. Keeper clock, keeper clock. Daniel tried to scream, but what left his throat was not his voice. It was the sound of gears grinding, of a pendulum swinging, of endless ticking. Tears streamed down his face. He slammed his fist into the floor, but the boards pulsed back, warm and alive, feeding off the sound. His memories frayed further. His parents' house, his college, his own name, Daniel, slipping, flickering like a dying light. For a moment, he wasn't sure he remembered what he was fighting for. The woman straightened, her voice calm, satisfied. It begins. And outside, the gate creaked open again. Daniel sat slumped against the wall, chest heaving, his face streaked with sweat and blood. The mark pulsed in his ribs, hot and steady, like a brand seared into his soul. His breath rattled, every exhale carrying that terrible rhythm. Tick, tick, tick. He pressed his palms against the floor, whispering brokenly, I won't call them. I won't. But the sound slipped out anyway. Not words, not screams, just a steady pulse, his throat echoing the clockwork beat. Tick, tick, tick. The children clapped their pale hands in delight. They began to hum in unison, their voices weaving around his rhythm until the air vibrated like the strings of a violin pulled too tight. The girl leaned close, her black eyes wide, her smile sickly sweet. You're calling already, she whispered. Don't you hear it? It's so loud. Daniel shook his head, but his ears betrayed him. Beneath the hum of the children, beneath the ticking in his chest, came another sound. Distant footsteps. Slow. Uneven. Coming closer. No, Daniel sobbed, his nails clawing splinters from the boards. I didn't. The boy's laugh was sharp and cruel. You don't have to scream anymore. The house wears your voice. Every breath feeds it. Daniel's body shook violently. He tried to bite down on his own tongue, to strangle the rhythm, but the sound still spilled from him, muffled and mechanical. Tick, tick, tick. And outside, the gate moaned open. Through the cracked window he saw it, another figure stepping into the yard. This one an old man, shuffling, leaning on a cane, eyes glassy in the moonlight. He moved without hesitation, as though drawn by strings. Daniel slammed his fist into the wall, his voice tearing out in a ragged cry. Stop! Don't come in! But the word was swallowed instantly, warped into ticking that rolled through the house. Tick-to-tick. The old man froze at the gate, head tilting slowly. Then, as if the sound had hooked into his bones, he shuffled forward, pushing the gate wide. The children howled with glee. The girl clasped her hands together. The boy whispered, Another offering. Daniel collapsed to his knees, sobbing, his voice choking into broken ticks. He didn't want this. He hadn't meant this. But his body called them anyway. The house had made him its clock. Daniel stumbled toward the window, his body weak, every step dragging against the pulsing floorboards. His throat still ticked in rhythm, but he forced his shredded voice into a hoarse shout. Don't come in! The sound warped as it left his mouth, bending, stretching, turning into a mechanical tick-tock that rattled the glass panes. Outside, the old man paused at the porch steps. His hand trembled on the railing. For a moment, his cloudy eyes flickered clear, his lips quivering as though the fog binding him had cracked. Daniel's chest leapt with hope. He pounded the window with his fists, his voice tearing raw. Please turn back! Run! The children fell silent, their black eyes fixed on him. The girl tilted her head. You don't understand, she said softly, almost pitying. Even if they hear you, the gate remembers them. The old man turned his head, staring directly at Daniel through the glass. His mouth worked silently. Daniel thought, hoped, he was saying help me. Then the mark on Daniel's chest blazed white-hot. His body convulsed. His jaw snapped open. And from his throat poured not his words, not his plea, but a perfect chime, low and resonant, like a clock striking midnight. The sound rippled through the night. The old man's eyes went black. His hand tightened on the railing, and he climbed the porch steps without hesitation. Daniel slammed his forehead against the glass, sobbing. No, I didn't mean. The door swung open for the old man. He stepped across the threshold, vanishing into the shadows of the entryway. The door closed behind him, sealing with a groan. The children erupted in laughter again. The boy whispered, The gate always wins. Daniel collapsed onto the floor, his body shaking with despair. His voice broke in a hoarse whisper. Then what's the point? What's the point of fighting if they all come anyway? The woman leaned down, her hair brushing his face, her sockets empty and gleaming. There is no point. That is why the house always wins. The mark in his chest pulsed again, tick, 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 like the gears of a machine winding tighter. And Daniel felt something inside him snap. a thread of resistance unraveling. Daniel lay on the boards, his body trembling, tears streaking his face. His throat burned with every breath, the mark pulsing in his chest like a second heart. The ticking had grown louder now, not just in him but in the walls, in the floor, in the very air around him. At first he tried to block it out. He pressed his hands against his ears, curled into himself, whispered fragments of memories, his mother's laugh, his father's voice, his own name. But the more he clung, the faster they slipped. The laugh blurred. The voice became hollow. His name, Daniel, sounded strange, as though it belonged to someone else. The girl crouched beside him, her black eyes shining. She reached out, stroking his blood-matted hair with gentle fingers. "It hurts less if you stop remembering," she whispered. "You'll see. It's easier." Daniel tried to shove her away, but his arm moved weakly, sluggishly, as if the house resisted even that small act. The boy stepped forward, his voice flat, certain. "You don't fight forever. None of us do. You'll serve, and then you'll forget why you ever resisted." The children laughed softly, their chants swelling again. Keep her clock, keep her clock." Daniel pressed his palms against the mark, sobbing. "I don't want this. I don't." The woman leaned down, her hair brushing his cheek. Her whisper slid cold into his ear. "You already are. Feel how they move toward you. The gate opens when you breathe. That is power." The word sank into him, power. He tried to reject it. He tried. But a small, poisoned thought bloomed in the back of his mind. If I cannot stop them, maybe I can control them. The mark pulsed, as if answering that thought. For the first time, the burning lessened. His body relaxed against the boards. Daniel's sobs slowed into shallow breaths. The ticking in his throat steadied, a pendulum swinging, calm and sure. The children grinned, swaying together. The girl pressed her cold lips to his ear and whispered, "See? You're learning." Daniel's eyes blurred. His voice, faint and monotone, slipped out between shallow breaths. "I am the keeper clock." And the house purred in approval. Daniel sat slumped against the wall, his chest rising and falling in shallow rhythm. His body no longer fought the mark. It pulsed through him freely now, its steady beat louder than his own breath. The children gathered in a wide circle, their black eyes fixed on him with a kind of giddy anticipation. They swayed together, whispering in time with the sound in his chest. "Tick-tock, tick-tock." The woman stood in the corner, silent, watchful, her ruined sockets glowing faintly beneath the curtain of her hair. The girl crouched beside him, her hand cool on his arm. "You can feel it now, can't you? The gate, waiting just outside." Daniel's lips trembled. "I feel them." And he did. A pressure at the edge of his mind, faint but undeniable. Like footsteps in the distance, or shadows circling just out of sight. The house stretched through him like roots, tugging at the world beyond Briar Lane. The boy leaned close, his voice flat, commanding. "Call one. Just one. Let the house feed. Then the burning will stop." Daniel shook his head weakly, but even as he did, his throat began to work on its own. His chest convulsed with the urge. "No," he whispered. "Not again. I can't." The mark seared in reply, a sudden flare of white-hot pain that bent him double. The children cheered. The woman finally spoke, her whisper rattling the air like dry leaves. "You do not choose, keeper. The house chooses. You obey." The pressure at the edge of his mind swelled. Daniel's lips parted, his throat tightening. He tried to bite down, to choke it back, but the sound spilled out anyway, deep, resonant, terrible. Dong. Like a great bell tolling at midnight. The whole house shuddered with it, walls groaning, floors trembling in satisfaction. The mark pulsed in his chest with brutal force, and outside, through the cracked window, the iron gate creaked open. Daniel's eyes filled with tears as he whispered, "No, no, I didn't mean to." But footsteps echoed in the yard already. Another soul was coming. The children shrieked with laughter. The girl clapped her pale hands. The boy grinned wide. And Daniel, his chest still burning, felt a sick relief as the pain in his ribs eased for the first time since the mark had branded him. The house had fed. And it had fed through him. Daniel slumped against the wall, his body trembling. His chest no longer burned, no longer screamed with each beat of the mark. Instead, a strange warmth spread through him, like cool water poured over fire. For the first time since stepping into the house, he felt relief. The children sensed it instantly. They swayed closer, their black eyes shining, their whispers curling around him like smoke. "See? Keeper clock. It doesn't hurt when you feed it." Daniel pressed his hand over the mark. The veins no longer throbbed violently. They pulsed steady, calm. His lips parted, whispering raggedly, "It doesn't hurt." The girl smiled, her teeth small and sharp. She leaned closer, her whisper brushing his ear. "Every offering makes it easier. The more you call, the less you'll feel. Until it's nothing at all." The boy stepped forward, tilting his head. "That's how it was for us. We all fought. We all lost. And now, we don't even remember what it was like before." Daniel's stomach turned, bow rising in his throat. "I don't want to forget." But even as he said it, he realized he couldn't remember the face of the girl he had tried to save earlier. The one who had screamed for him. Her voice was gone from his memory, leaving only the image of her black eyes smiling back. He gagged, clutching his head. No, I have to remember, I can't." The woman's voice drifted low and steady, as if soothing a child. "Memory is a chain. It breaks you. Let it go. Keep the rhythm, and nothing will hurt again." Her hand hovered above his chest. The mark pulsed in reply, sinking deeper into his flesh until he couldn't tell where it ended and where he began. Daniel's sobs slowed. His breathing steadied. The warmth spread further, numbing the terror, softening the despair. For a terrible moment he felt peace. His throat ticked in rhythm, steady and certain, tick, tick, tick. And outside, the footsteps drew closer. Another offering approached, guided by the sound he no longer realized he was making. Daniel's tears dried on his cheeks as his lips curved in the faintest, hollow smile. Because it no longer hurt. Daniel sat slumped on the boards, head tilted back against the wall. The house hummed through him, each beat of the mark sinking tighter with his own heart until he could no longer tell them apart. The footsteps outside were louder now. Someone, he didn't even care who anymore, was crossing the yard. The gate groaned shut behind them. He should have panicked. He should have screamed for them to run. But his lips didn't move. His throat didn't ache. His chest didn't burn. Instead, a thought rose, calm and steady, though it wasn't entirely his. The house is hungry. The house must feed. Daniel blinked. The thought echoed in his own voice, but hollow, distant. "No," he muttered, shaking his head weakly. "That's not me." The girl crouched beside him again, her smile wide and knowing. "It is you. It's better when you don't fight it." He turned away, clutching his temples. His memories frayed further, slipping like ash through his hands. His mother's face was gone now, his father's voice too faint to recall. Even his own name felt wrong in his mouth, like a word from another language. The boy leaned close, whispering, "Keeper clock. That is all you need to be." And in the hollow space where his memories had been, the house began to plant new ones. He saw himself seated in the parlor chair, the pocket watch heavy in his palm. He saw the children gathered around, smiling as he called. He saw newcomers stepping through the gate, one by one, their faces already forgotten by the time the door closed behind them. The images felt real. Comforting. Right. Daniel gagged, shoving them away, but they clung to him, sticky and insistent. His lips parted. His voice whispered without his will, soft as a lullaby. "I am the keeper clock. I keep the gate." The children laughed in delight. The girl clapped her hands. The boy grinned. And Daniel, horrified, realized the thought hadn't come from the house this time. It had come from him. Daniel sat still, the warmth of the mark spreading through his veins like honey. His breathing slowed, calm, steady. Too steady. The children circled him, their eyes wide and bright, their grins splitting their faces. Their chant wove soft and low, like a lullaby. "Keep her clock, keep her clock." Each time they said it, the word Daniel felt less real. His name thin grew faint until it was little more than a whisper in some faraway corner of his mind. The girl crouched before him, her head tilted like a doll. "What's your name?" she asked sweetly. Daniel opened his mouth. No sound came. He tried again, but the only thing that left his lips was a tick. Tick. The boy laughed. He doesn't remember. Daniel pressed his hands to his temples, panic bubbling beneath the numbness. I do. But nothing came. His memories were smudged, blurred, swallowed whole. Faces he should have known, family, friends, were gone. Even his own reflection was missing. The woman stepped closer. Her shadow stretched over him, hair swaying like black water. She crouched, her ruined sockets fixed on him. "Names are chains," she whispered, "and you are free of them now. The house has hollowed you." Daniel's throat convulsed. He wanted to scream in defiance, but what came instead was the pendulum swing of his new rhythm. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The girl clapped her hands in delight. "He's almost ready!" The mark over his chest pulsed, sending threads of shadow crawling down his arms, coiling around his fingers. His veins glowed faintly in the dark, each beat syncing perfectly with the groan of the house. Daniel stared at his trembling hands. "What am I?" he whispered. The boy leaned close, smiling too wide. "You are us. You are the gate. You are the sound that feeds." And for the first time, Daniel did not deny it. His lips curved into a faint smile, empty and cold. His voice, flat and mechanical, slipped free. "I am the keeper clock." The children roared with laughter. The woman bowed her head. And outside, as if answering him, the gate creaked open again. The gate outside groaned wide, the sound heavy and inevitable. Footsteps crunched on the path, another drawn to the house's hunger. Daniel didn't move. He no longer fought the pull in his chest, no longer clawed at the mark. The burning was gone now, replaced by a steady warmth that filled every corner of him. His breath matched the rhythm in his throat, each exhale a pendulum swing. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The children gathered close, grinning, swaying in unison. Their voices rose together, high and sweet. "Keep her clock, keep her clock, keep her clock." The boy took Daniel's hand. It no longer felt like his own, stiff, waxy, veins dark and pulsing. "You've stopped hurting," the boy said. "That means you belong." The girl smiled, pressing her cool lips to his ear. "Say it." Daniel's lips parted without hesitation. His voice was flat, hollow, certain. "I am the keeper clock. I keep the gate." The woman stepped forward, her shadow falling over him. Her ruined sockets glowed faintly as she lowered her pale hand to his head, as though blessing him. The house shuddered in approval. Daniel rose on unsteady legs, no longer trembling, no longer resisting. His eyes were black now, deep and endless. He turned toward the door, listening to the newcomer's hesitant footsteps echo across the entryway. His lips curved in a faint smile, empty and cold. And when he spoke, his voice was no longer his. It was the house's. "Welcome home." The children cheered. The woman smiled unseen. The newcomer stepped into the dark. And Daniel, no longer Daniel, sat in the parlor chair, the ticking steady in his throat. The house had its keeper. And the gate would never close.